This is episode 1 of the Air Hug Community Podcast. I'm your host, Judy Arazosa. Here on the Air Hug Community, we share conversations and stories with guests and myself that inspire us not to just survive, but to thrive. We dive into topics such as relationships, habits for better health, and how you see the world. Whether you are a mother or an other, the Air Hug Community is here to remind you that improving the lives of others will undoubtedly improve your life exponentially. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today. Our guest is Jeannie Utter. And I happen to be fortunate to be her sister. Jeannie has agreed to share with us today her incredible journey about how she found peace and serenity while beginning and maintaining her weight loss journey. So Jeannie, I'm just going to give you one quick little thing, a little intro, and let you start telling us a little bit about yourself. But 10 years ago, you made a decision, correct?
That is correct. Yes, I did.
Would you like to just take it from here and tell us about it?
Well, okay. So the background story is that I think from about the age of 4 to the age of 51, I struggled with my weight. And as a little kid, I didn't know that's what I was doing. But certainly by the time I got to 51, I did know that's what was going on. And I, at a height of about 5'2", I was right around 240, 250. And that's a lot. That's a size 22. And, had I tried things? Sure. Over those many years, lots of things got tried. Lots of things fell by the wayside. And, what made the difference this time? For me to really dig in deep and do it. And there was a couple of things. Number one, you go to the doctor, you got to lose weight. Yeah. Yep, I agree with you. I do, and I'm good for maybe 3 days, and then it all goes fluey. But then, I started seeing, I like to say that the wagons were beginning to circle. So, I had things that, even though I wasn't there yet, that indicators that diabetes might be in my future and some other things. And I already had older siblings that were diabetic. And, we come from a large family. We're one of 8 people, and Judy and I are 7 and 8. So I really favored my older sister, who was about 13 years older than me. And she had diabetes. And I'm like, that really is clearly in my future, and I don't want it. And I was generally, if you saw me, I was pretty reasonable, a pretty contented looking person. And, I would be easygoing, roll off my back kind of person. But honestly, that's not really me. There was a lot of other stuff going on in the inside that got hidden and actually got anesthetized by the amount of food and the kind of food that I was eating. So along comes some people that I saw changes being made in, and they had gotten my attention. And I ended up finding out what they were doing and decided to do it. And what I walked into was a whole community of people that, number one, had successfully lost weight and kept it off for the most part. I mean, there's always outliers and struggles. And not only that, people have gotten down. I've gotten down to goal weights in my early 20s before, only to have myself struggle and put it back on. And so that was, you know, whatever the physical stuff was going on, but not the emotional stuff, not the mental stuff, not the spiritual stuff. And that's really where my big healing needed to be, not just in the physical aspect, but also in those areas of my life. I needed to heal myself emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically. So, yeah, that's how I started. And Judy, you can ask me another question because I can go on, or would you like me to go in a different direction?
No, I love that. I do have a question because you've said this many, many times. You said, and this always kind of hits me because you said you had to get honest with yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's it. We all like to joke about, calories don't count when you're standing in front of the refrigerator or the cupboard, or the compulsive need to make a pan of brownies, serve them up to people, and then make sure it had a nice flat edge. I mean, any reason to eat. But even though I tried to limit what came into my house, I still was finding ways to eat. And it could be, you know, 3 pounds of carrots. All right. Some diet programs will tell you, oh, vegetables are free. You can have as many as you want, 0 points or whatever. And, but sitting down and eating a pound of carrots while you were watching TV is not, pretty sure, not what they intended, or, if one bag of fat-free microwave popcorn is, okay, then maybe I can have two. I mean, there were ways that I would manipulate whatever was doing. I would be on the money for like 2 weeks, and then I would start finding ways to manipulate and get my drug of choice, which is what I'm going to call it. For me, um, I call myself a food addict, and that's because I have lost the ability. My thermostat has gone kaflooey. So I realize that there are certain limits that need to be put on myself and certain understandings that I do. And so the community that I'm a part of also shares that same belief. And so we support each other in that. And so you had to get honest. So the first level of honesty had to be about what I was doing with food. And so I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and people are going to, balk at it, but it works for me. So I had a prescribed way of eating, and I ate that way. I didn't vary off of it. Um, I don't eat flour and sugar, and that is my choice that I make every single day. And for me, it came down to, it's done me no favors, because flour and sugar in my body acts like alcohol in an alcoholic's body. So I might be good with one slice today, but then my mind would start going, and it would start, how can I get another slice? Who's having another slice? Well, they're having two. Well, maybe I'll have two. And then if it's in my house, like after a event or something, then it's, when can I eat that again? How much can I eat that again? Should I just have a little bit more? I mean, it took up a lot of um, thinking, a lot of thinking on that. And it's like, how do you get anything else done when your mind is just keeps on going back to, when can I have that again? And so it was really a great distraction. And obviously, at 5'2", weighing, when I started with this program, 241 and a half, it was like, clearly this is an addiction. Clearly, this is taking up too much of my time and energy and space, and had for most of my life. Along with that comes sort of a stunting of my own emotional growth. I'm not going to say I was acting like a 4-year-old. I did grow up, get married, have a job. I don't always go around acting like a 4-year-old, because that's sort of where I think my thermostat broke, where the switch got turned. But but I did need to develop a better sense of who I was and myself. And so the first thing is I needed to become honest. That's what Judy said. Part of that honesty is then doing a deep dive into myself. What is it that I need to really take a good look at? And some of those things I didn't want to do. Some of those things were things that happened to me, and not everybody reacts the same way, but then I would hold a resentment. But I was raised to be a polite young lady, so nobody really saw the resentment, or I don't think they did. But what they saw was somebody who would withdraw, my mother always told me I was the shy one, because I would step back and watch what was going on around me, and decide, do I want to put my toe in or not? And a lot of times I didn't. And I would just rather eat instead of dealing with that, or risking the emotional outcome of going in there. So I would be nice and polite, and yes and no and please and thank you and all of that. I got the most considerate camper at day camp award.
Yeah, you had
But
all that down really good.
right, right. But what people didn't see is that I was carrying an awful lot of resentment. And but I knew that was not a good thing to carry. Another thing that I would carry, and this was interesting, I actually heard this in my early 30s, was I was seeing a therapist at the time, and I remember telling her, God rest my mother, she had already passed at this point, but my mom would always say how guilty she felt. Don't you feel guilty about this? Don't you feel guilty about that? And that was like a huge red flag for the therapist to say that. And I believe that I took on that kind of thinking. Maybe not what my mother was guilty about, but maybe internalized my own. So now I'm holding resentment. And then I feel like I need to constantly apologize for myself. And, you know, that all gets shoved down with food. All those negative feelings get shoved down with food. And that just became my automatic go-to all the time. And it's not until, number one, I had to put the food down. I had to figure out what those feelings were and then feel them for the first time. And then talk to other people about it. That's where the community comes in. So there's trusted people that I would reach out to, and we could really, when I say do the deep dive, actually talk about it and bring it out. And I periodically do this. I periodically will then go through the deep dive again and say, okay, what else is in there? What is still festering a little bit? And it could be not just resentment and anger and guilt, but fear. And sometimes I could be judgmental to other people and things. So it's really taking a hard look at myself. And then after that, really letting it go through, working through it with other people, particularly one person at a time, but doing that.
Mhm.
Now, during this whole thing, now, if you remember, there were three things I talked about. One was physical, one was emotional, and one was spiritual.
Mhm.
So the spiritual thing came in that there's a, now I'm not going to call it meditation, we call it quiet time, where usually in the morning, first half hour of awakening, you get up and you do some quiet time thinking and sitting still. Well, in the beginning, it's like, what? You want me to just wake up and then sit still? I mean, A, I might fall asleep, and B, my mind is going, a mile a minute. And it's like every 2 minutes. Is 5 minutes gone by yet? Is 10 minutes gone by yet? And that's really something that's been developed over time. And sometimes I'm not, like this morning, I didn't get it in the morning, like my right away getting up. I had other things that I needed to do, but I did get it later in the morning. But I find it very calming, and I find it very helpful um, to rest my mind and to try to just let go and let thoughts flow. And to do that, I've actually tapped into some meditation websites and apps on my phone and stuff that
Mhm.
actually help me to focus a little bit. Um, I also have a belief in a power greater than myself. And this is not the fire and brimstone guy that will zap you if you are not um, doing things perfectly. This is more of my guide. This is more that we are going to, side by side, we're going to walk through these things. So when difficult things happen, as they're gonna in everybody's life, nobody's immune to living a life that doesn't have sadness or tragedy or illness or heartbreak in it. None of us are immune to that. And my go-to thing used to be food. And and part of this was learning that I would be pissed off at the God of my childhood. Like, really? Really? Thank you. You know, Instead, I have a friend, I have a guide, I've got something that has got my back. And no matter what I've had to walk through, I can get through it and not be afraid of negative emotions. So, yeah, some days I'm going to be sad, and that's okay because I can walk through it and get to the other side. It's not going to be a permanent state. I can feel powerless over situations that I really don't have any power for, and know that, yep, I can get through this. Now, am I happy about it? No. Am I walking around with a big smile on my face saying, yeah, I got this? No. No, I go through the whole range of being, a little angry, a little grief, a little frustration. And then I have to bring it back to, what is it that I can do? What is it in this exact moment? I can do nothing to change whatever that situation is, and for 99% of it. But what can I do right now? And sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's um, just sitting with the feeling. Sometimes it's a journal. Sometimes it's get up and go fold that load of laundry you need to do. Um, we like to say, just do the next right thing. Just take this next step to get you through it. And
Oh, can I just interrupt?
oh,
I
yeah,
Can you say that again? I just love that. Just do.
the next right thing.
That's amazing. Because it's hard to slow down. I'm like thinking along with you and nodding my head and trying so hard not to interrupt you, but I just had to stop there because just do the next right thing is amazing to me. That like when you'd rather eat a bag of Oreos, it's like, what's the next right thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And Judy,
Hmm.
my life. So what's happened over the last few years. And it's like, you know, I have no control over these things. Um, we lost two grandchildren last year. Um,
Yeah, I'm going to let you take a breath, and that's okay. You've been through quite an amazing number of things, but most recently, those two grandchildren. You can pop in, go ahead and catch your breath. because that's something. Um, but looking at the next right thing, is that what you relied on?
Yeah, I had to. I mean, and with the first one was a stillborn, my stillborn grandson Landon, and your heart breaks not only for the loss of a grandchild, um, but also because you are powerless over fixing it. As parents, you want to be able to say to your kids, "It's going to be all right. I'm going to protect you," even when they're adults, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing I could do to protect him, to protect Jeremy and Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing, except to be there and except to learn not what not to say. Like, somebody loses a baby, don't ever say, you know, everything has a purpose. I mean, I'm still not convinced there was a purpose in that.
Yeah.
I just am not. And so that was really hard. And then 6 months later, my daughter also had a baby boy, her and her husband, River, who they knew was not going to survive. They knew that, and she chose to carry it to 34 weeks before delivery. So that baby lived for about 2.5 hours. So again, it's a double whammy of that kind of thing where I am absolutely powerless over this. And a lot of praying, a lot of supporting your children in this. Um, you know, uh, it's doing the next right thing. And sometimes it was like doing that load of laundry. Sometimes it was a phone call. Sometimes it was calling people and saying, look, I just really, need to talk about it because I needed to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just talk about it because, and the key is finding people who know that they're powerless over that too, that there's probably no good advice they're going to give you, but they can listen and they can be compassionate. And that's actually what I'm learning from that, like, okay, you know, I really did not like it when people would say to me, God has a purpose for everything. I'm like, yeah, there ain't no good purpose for this.
No.
And so my personal belief is that, God gave people free will. So people are going to make choices. Well, those little babies did not have free will. But there is such thing called biology. And, it's not an exact science. Things happen. And, you know, that's all I can say is things happen. And, it's my job to move through this world in a way that's going to be helpful. You know, I don't want to sugarcoat anything, but I also know that I can get through something. And if you're going through something, I could sit here and hold your hand and listen to you and help you through that thing that you're going through and not pretend that I'm going to, make all sorts of platitudes and tell you things are going to be better. When I know there's going to be a road of grief and sadness and little things are going to happen that bring it up. And, and it's interesting. What I've learned is that nobody wants to talk about pregnancy loss, whether it's miscarriages or other things. Now, our mom had two. She was pretty open about telling us about it. But then there's other people who don't want to talk about it, and that's their right. But I think we should be able to um, talk about it. I'm sort of going off the
I
rails a little
know.
bit there, but
But I think the difference is because I'm looking back and thinking even to like earlier times in our life, or um, you talked about having someone that literally could literally and figuratively hold your hand or give you a hug. But they were not, it's like if you fell in a well and they would jump down in that well with you and say, we're gonna get out of this together, versus they're calling down to you like, geez, I'm sorry you fell in that well. Are you okay? You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
and
Exactly.
it sounds to me, and we've had a lot of conversations too, like you have in your life actually found um people and maybe systems, I don't know if it's people and or systems, where they actually practice empathy with you. And it's also sounds to me like your spiritual guidance is more like you call, I love that you called your spiritual power a friend, not like a dictator, and not like shame producing, you know.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. It's that's not the way. You made a mistake. We're human. Yeah. And I do go to a church. And I do. I was raised Catholic. I go to a progressive Catholic church that the Vatican does not recognize. But I'm good with that. I'm
Hmm.
good with that. And I have my reasons for being there. And that's good. I found a place that actually supports that whole idea that I have. So it's like, okay, you know, I can work with this.
It's in
Um,
alignment with the, what do I want to say, the support that you've searched out when you started this journey 10 years ago.
right. And actually, and my for that that support system that I use, it this is my version of this.
Hmm.
Somebody else in the system, their version of God or a higher power may be something different. So
Hmm.
there are other people that will say, yeah, I'm 100% believe that God controls everything, and every second of every day has been pre-planned for me.
Hmm.
So there, I don't necessarily believe that, but I know that there are people that do, and that's fine. It's not important that our vision of a higher power, spiritual guide, God, whatever you want to call it, is exactly the same. It's not important. It's just how you tap into that spirituality, how that helps to make you grow as a person, um, and to be better. I mean, um, last week in one of my meetings with my fellows, we were talking about a bunch of different things, but basically it's how have you had a change, and they were talking about, have you had a spiritual awakening kind of thing, and how have you changed. And what really struck me is when I decided to talk, sometimes I'm not sure what's coming out of my mouth, is that the I no longer feel like I need to apologize for myself. I don't, you know, excuse me, I'm alive. And I used to go around saying, I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry all the time. I no longer do that. Or I try not to do that. I'm going to say I probably slip up sometimes, but I
um
don't have to apologize for my existence is the way I felt.
that
And
is profound.
there is, and what attracted me, not only the weight loss in this group, but attracted me was the people who had been practicing for a long time, was that they had an aura of peace and serenity around them. And I'm like, yeah, I want the thinner body, the healthier body, definitely. But I also want that. That is really, that to me is the golden coin,
Oh,
is that
wow.
peace and serenity, you know. And then when I have that, then the other stuff actually makes it easy to do other things. Um,
And you noticed that in that group when you were, what do I want to call you, a rookie?
Yeah. Well, you know what it came to me was, I was out, I was belonged to a book club at that point that we'd meet at dinner, and we'd meet after work. So we were all teachers, and we'd meet together and go out to dinner and talk about the book, but also, what's going on, because we weren't all in the same school anymore. But this one person was, and this was as weight was coming off of me. And she was somebody that would ask me about it. And I know that this is not just Weight Watchers. This is not anything against Weight Watchers, because if you're doing that and it's working for you, God bless, but this is what I needed to do. And I know that it's not a road that everybody wants to go down. So I sort of like hang back. And so we were out to dinner, and I was ordering my dinner. Not a problem ordering what I needed and what I wanted. And she made a comment to me about, wow, how can you do that? It's good food. I don't know what the big deal is. But I looked at her and said, what popped out of my mouth is, I want the peace and serenity that comes as a part of doing this. So no food, no flour and sugar product. I like to say no piece of chocolate cake is going to give me the serenity and the peace that I've gotten from what I do. And so, in fact, the chocolate cake lied to me. It said, you're going to be okay. And I was okay for like a minute. And then all I did was keep on eating after that, because I was trying to replicate that first hit that I got from that first bite. And I
Yeah.
could never replicate that first hit. And that's the addiction part of it for me. It's not, and I know people do everything in moderation, and, that kind of stuff. But for me, it's when the switch flipped, it flipped.
It
And
flipped
so
and
it's the peace and serenity. I get more peace and serenity doing these other things than I do out of eating. So,
it's pretty amazing. And I can see that in you, obviously, being around you, and we live in the same city or area. It is amazing. Like, there have been some situations, family situations, where like we would be gathered and we wouldn't be together yet. And I can remember one situation when I think it was Christmas Eve at our house, and we were not ready for the main meal yet. And dad was in the other room, and he was older and needed assistance at that time. And you just went and sat with him, and everyone else was like literally devouring the appetizers. And I was just kind of noticing, I'm like, she's much happier over there. It's not that anyone else wasn't happy, but what mattered was that you were doing something that brought you, and I guess I'm going to use your words now, peace and serenity, but I couldn't think of what the words were when I was watching it happen. I just knew that you were content where you were, and it was way different than you would have been 20 years before.
right, 20 years before, dad would have been by himself and I would have been eating with
Hmm.
everybody else. Not that that wasn't, that's what, you know, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And understand that with that eating always came a personal debate. So it wasn't ever, other people may be able to just eat something and enjoy it. For me, it's how much can I get? Can I get more of it? Should I have more of it? Am I good if I have more of it? Am I better if I leave it alone? Oh, I ate another piece. Oh, there was a lot of self-judgment. I mean, so that's not peace and serenity when
hmm
you're just the debate is going on in your head the whole time, you
yeah.
know.
And it does that tie into the quietness in the morning when you wake up, or am I imagining that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the quietness in the morning is key, because you want to, people are going to describe it in different ways.
Hmm.
So you want to be present. You want to sort of clear away the cobwebs. And my higher power, that's when I want to know, well, I've got a day ahead of me. What is it that I need to be doing? What is it for the good. What is it that I need to be doing and concentrating? And I'm not always perfect. As the day goes on, I have to remember that. Um, you know, it's funny because I'm retired. I've been retired teacher for 5 years, but I also have been going in and subbing. And even as when I was still working full time, there's always a class. There's always one that was like, okay, that class is coming into the room, and I inevitably would have, okay, God, it's me and you. All right, just give me the words I need to say to these kids, and whatever. And sometimes it was good, and sometimes it wasn't, and sometimes I did better, and sometimes they did better. It didn't matter, But
Mm-hmm.
but it's that kind of thing. And then you know, another saying that you may have heard in other things is, don't wear the world like a loose garment. So when there's a lot of things going around, and there's a lot going on in our country right now, that people can get upset and just get all anxious and about. And that's where, okay, yes, this is going around. Yes, I have my opinions about it. What can I be? Do I want to live in fear? So um, if I wear my clothes like a tight girdle, if I'm wearing the world like a tight girdle, then I'm trying to hold on to things that I can't control. And then sometimes that leads to resentment and justifiable anger and all this other crap, which is absolutely get you nowhere. And it can alienate you from other people. So when you let that stuff go and really look around and say, okay, if I feel really strongly about an issue, what is it that I can do? What is it within my wheelhouse that I feel comfortable doing and that I can do? So it's not like I've got to go out and fix it. That's another way. So if I feel that way and I'm wearing that girdle again, it's like I got to go out and fix it. I got to do now, and if I don't do it, I'm bad. It's not even that. It's letting it go. Okay, you know. But what little changes can I make, and be good with little changes? Not feeling like I have to run the show or I have to make a big show of it. I just read something the other day, rereading. One of the things the church I attend did in May was meditation. So Monday through Friday, they had two people that wrote a blog and then would do like a 3 or 4 minute meditation with you at the end of the blog. And they recorded it. So it was, if you did it at 4 o'clock in the morning, that was great. Or if they did it, if you did it at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, that was okay too. So it was there. So recently I decided that I wanted to revisit those. So I've been rereading them. And one of the persons talked about being of service and being helpful. And there's a double-edged sword to that. If your motive is, look at, I helped somebody and nobody recognized it, and you're pissed off about it, then your motive for doing the service only is bringing you misery. If you expect to be recognized or praised for your service, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's got to be something, and I may be getting this wrong, but I sort of getting the gist of it. It's got to be something you want to do just because you want to do it, just because you get something helpful out of that. And I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of something that other people may feel is like, why would you want to do that? And actually, I'm going to use my daughter's wedding, was pretty much like a DIY wedding. And I had family that came while, of course, I was sort of running around between two places. So I was in the bride area with all the bridesmaids and the bride and getting dressed and doing all that. And then I had people that were family that were putting things out. So the table settings and the arrangements and that kind of stuff. So I was sort of going back and forth. But that's the kind of thing I would love doing. If somebody was saying, "Hey, I need help setting up this. Would you come?" I would come because I enjoy doing it. Not because I want you to give me a pat on the back. Not because I, you know, want to get praised for it or recognized for it. I want to do it because I want to do it. And I think there are situations that people get themselves in that they can say, well, I always help so and so and so and so, and feel like you almost got to run somebody's life and you see it as you're helping them. Well, I've done this and I've done that, and they never say thank you. And that is where I think selflessness is actually selfish because you're expecting something in return.
Yeah.
If you're going to go out and you're going to do something to help somebody, do it because you want to. Do it because it may bring you joy. Don't do it because you're expecting a pat on the back and recognition. And if you're doing something and it's not bringing you joy and you're feeling frustrated, what are your motives? Are your motives to control that other person?
Mm-hmm.
Are your motives to feel like you need to go in and rescue everybody and then get mad when they don't want to be rescued?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Boy, is that interesting when it's got the wheels turning, when you think about why do people do things, and it's interesting. You do it for the personal joy, even if nobody knows that it was you that did it. You knew that you did it.
Right.
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 But I think, sometimes, and I've been caught doing things for the wrong reason and then doing things other ways too. It's like if you were to do it anonymously,
Hmm.
would you get the same joy out of it?
Yeah. Yeah. And we all make that mistake, honestly.
Sure, we're
Nobody
human.
is without doing that. And I think as a parent, sometimes we tend to want to control their lives. Certainly when they were younger, we were used to controlling their lives. And then as they get older, you're like, okay, all right, got to let it go.
Yeah, they really don't need us very much. And then it's like, oh, it was kind of nice when they needed us,
Yeah.
and then when they don't, if they don't, they don't. But then, I've thought about this a lot. It's like, but look at what a wonderful thing they've become independent, and if they do want some help, they'll let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they'll let us know. And that's as a mother-in-law, that's what I try not to step on anybody's toes. I remember whose house I'm at. I'm not at my house. And, just as also being my grandchild is my son's daughter. Well, I respect that there is a special bond between a daughter and a mother and their baby and
Yeah.
her baby.
Hmm.
And so to me, that's sort of like, okay, I'm going to step back. And not that I am left out, absolutely not left out 100%.
No, of course you're not.
But but the person she's going to go to for advice is going to be her own mom.
Yeah.
So unless they ask, or if I say, I might ask, can I give a suggestion or whatever? But I don't go in saying, let me tell you how to do it. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's very respectful of their special bond. And I could take mother-in-law lessons from you. Thank you. Because, I am the mother of a daughter with a daughter. And I'm also the mother of a son who's about to have, he and his wife are about to have a daughter. And I've talked about this with my husband, how I'm just waiting and have let them know they can ask whenever they want. And if they don't ask, I won't be in the way,
Right.
or I'm available, but you need to ask. I will not show up unannounced.
Yeah. No, no, exactly. 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 You know, because that honestly will be a special time for her and her mother when that baby's born. And you
Yeah.
know that,
Yeah.
you know. Um, we both fortunately did get at least one or two of our children to have our mother around
Hmm.
with it, you know. So, you know, that's real important.
Yeah. It was very special, and
Mhm.
um yeah, that could be a whole other podcast episode about
Yes, it could be.
the mother-daughter bond.
A couple other things that we were talking about along this journey is that one of the things that we do in this with this fellowship is, like I said, we do the deep dive and we look at those and we talk about them. And again, we do have systems for going through it, so it's not like you're
Mhm.
out there by yourself. But another part of that whole process is to actually looking at people that maybe we have offended or hurt, and that we have to go and make an amends to. That we have to say, okay, maybe I was a little jerk when I did this and that. And that actually helps also. And one of the things that we do, or if we remember, not everybody's perfect,
Mhm.
is that at night is I make a gratitude list. I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for during the day. But I've also started doing a little inventory. Was there a point in time that I was acting selfish? Was there a point in time that I got angry or resentful at something? And what was the situation? And do I need, and then the ultimate part of that is, do I need to go back and say my bad about something?
Do you need to own it?
Do I need to own it? So we call, you keep your side of the street clean,
Oh,
you
I
know,
love that.
this is something, so I look at everything that I'm grateful for. Then I'm like, all right, where is there, and sometimes that little inventory, um, I don't think I got anything. And then all of a sudden, 3 days later, I'm like, oh, and then it comes up later. It's like that's one of those things that is easy to bury. But
Yeah, and probably easy to bury with food
right, right,
for whoever.
right,
Yeah. Hmm.
right. So, but this is a periodic reflection, growth kind of thing, you know,
Hmm.
always trying to strive for balance in my life of, not overdoing it on one thing or the other. So,
This is so your journey, I mean, food was really just one of your vectors for soothing, and you've just acquired so many tools so
yeah,
that, to use food for nourishment, but not emotional nourishment.
right. And I enjoy the food I eat, you
You
know.
do. We talk about that. Yeah.
We're in the bountiful season right now, and I joined a CSA. I've been on and off of them, but one of my favorite times during the week is, oh, what am I going to get in my box this week? Um, because then maybe I wouldn't have picked out a vegetable, or I learned to eat something new, or so I like that. I like, okay, that's my variety, that's my thing, and I don't judge things up too much.
Uh-huh.
Try to keep it simple, and keeping it simple a lot of times is great. I can get dinner done in a half hour, so
Yeah.
that's great, and then I can go out and do something else. So,
I'm laughing because all I can think of right now is kohlrabi.
oh yes,
Because the few years that we did, like 4 or 5 years with a CSA, and when kohlrabi showed up, I'm like, what is this big ball with things coming out of it. And then I learned to like it, and I actually enjoy it. So,
Yeah. 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 There's stuff like that. And it's just so that's just very, I keep things sort of simple.
yeah.
Um I do, the other odd thing for me is when I would come home from work, I got so, if I what I knew what I was gonna, I it was already planned out. I, especially when I was working, I'd make out a menu, a dinner menu for the week.
Hmm.
And so I would just look at the menu and say, oh, what am I having today? All right, let's go get them. And I had everything I needed.
Hmm.
But then for me, I like cooking, but I keep it simple. So I would just cook and do that. Now, some people don't like cooking, so they'll do a whole lot of batch cooking on the weekend. And so when they come home, they just throw things in the microwave and nuke it.
Hmm.
And of course, when I was started this, I had my husband and myself and at least one or two of my children home with us during that time. So I was making dinner for more than just me.
Hmm.
And so now it's just my husband and I. And but that's good because I'm still making a meal, setting a table, sitting down, and having a nice dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. That planning the menu is, I don't know, is fun, I think,
Yeah.
Um, some people don't like it quite so much, but it's whatever. So, um, I have want to wrap this up, but I have a couple of little questions and comments. Before we started recording, I asked you this question, which was very interesting because I had asked you on the little questionnaire that I sent you ahead of time, and we got stuck on a word, which was interesting. So, what I intended to ask you was, what are you excited about today? And excitement, I think, in your mind and in my mind, were two different things, which was really interesting because I just meant like, when you woke up this morning, what were you like? Oh, wow, I'm going to do this today or that, or this is going on, or that is going on. But you expressed like excitement was maybe too strong a word. It was more like excitement reminded you of milestone life events, right?
Yeah. Like going to a wedding and celebrating, or yeah, stuff like that.
Right. What here it is. It's just at the time of this recording, it's just early September, and it is what it is. So
Yeah.
I said, okay, so if I rephrase this and I said, where is your energy being drawn to today? And then you came up with some really interesting comments.
Well, so my energy is being drawn to being of service, and one in my community. That's one place that I can do that, and I could do more. But then the other part is also in my faith community, um, is very big on missions and social justice, and that's what I'm drawn to. And certainly with all the protests and things going on in our city, we're in Rochester, New York. So those of you who may be listening from another place, um, has had for about a week now weekly demonstrations because of the death that occurred at the hands of police officers in March, but didn't get revealed until a week ago to the public anyway.
Hmm.
Anyway, and so I believe that there is systemic racism. And so that is something that I want to be a part of. Now, with COVID and with being married to someone who has some comorbidities, it is not wise for me to go out and protest in large groups of people, even if I'm wearing a mask.
Hmm.
Um, it would also stress that person out if I did it anyway. I mean, if I did it and there wasn't COVID, that would be a real huge stressor. So I needed to find other ways to be an advocate,
Hmm.
other ways to help. So I put my energy. I'm in a part of a committee at my church. Some people a lot of people are in sort of in my boat too, with
Mm.
not wanting to physically be at protests. But
Because of being part of a high risk population.
right, right,
Right.
right. So what we are doing is one of the things we're doing is we're developing or raising funds for and doing trying to come up with a civil rights heritage park for our city, and it is going to be located right in one of the predominantly um, black and brown zip codes in the city, in an existing space, an existing park, but they're going to donate it. So we're raising money for that. But one of the things I agreed to do was to be a researcher. So one of the committee people has background in history and has come up with this template, and I can do that from my from my living room. I can sit on my laptop and do the research, go to search engines, look up civil rights activists that came through Rochester, New York, and she's got a whole thing that we can do. And it's actually sort of interesting because not only am I looking for I'm looking for primary resources as far as secondary. So I'm like, yeah, this is something that I can get a little excited about. Would I like to be out there marching with people shoulder to shoulder? Yeah, actually, I would. But I know that that's not the right thing for me to do right now. Um, I even thought of going in. There's a couple of locations that would be like respite locations for people
Mm-hmm.
that get a drink of water, maybe sit with them if they're upset about something, about what's going on, be there to listen. But again, that's putting me in a situation where I'm going to be around a lot of people.
Still
And
going to be at risk.
so that is not a comfortable thing. But as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing that that research and that committee is what I can do. And reading, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about my own, about systemic racism and stuff. So I've read
Mm-hmm.
one book I'm slogging through. I
Mm-hmm.
may change to the audio form of it just because I think it might. So I have it in print, but if I have the audio form, I might get through it a little better
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot to it. But that's sort of where I am being drawn into is,
So I have a question. If maybe and I can put this in the show notes. Where or how is there some way that people can help you?
well, yeah. Let me just look on my phone for a second to see if I can pull up, get the right web address. Hold
All
on.
right, and you can give it to me, and I'll pop it in the show notes so that when people look at it, it'll be right there.
It's called the Rochester Heritage Site,
Rochester Heritage Site.
but I'm trying to get it. Yeah, my fingers are fat. It's not letting me get to this.
That's all right. If you give it to me later, I'll put it in the show notes, and then people can get it. Because I think there's going to be, people may want to know more about this. And I think a lot of us, feel like, what can we do to help? What actually can we do that will make a difference?
Yeah,
And so we'll get that information up in the show notes, and people can at least read about it and see what they can do as well.
yeah. So it's Rochester Heritage Site, one word, .org. And
Okay.
then there should be a donate button on it if you feel compelled to help.
Okay.
So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So I have one more little quick question, and I think the way our conversation has evolved is, um, I think this will be a nice question. And have been thinking about doing this, and have been intending to ask every guest this. What do air hugs mean in your world?
Well, I can't get a real one other than from my husband right
Mhm.
now. So air hugs is just, it's, yeah, I've got your back. We're here together. We're in it. You know, it's solidarity, it's community, it's support, it's compassion.
I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Beautiful. This has been amazing. And I think when a lot of people saw it at the beginning, it might, sorry, I thought I had that on silent. Um, this has gone in such an interesting direction, and it's not all about, how many bites of this or that. It's more about like what you said. Um, God, what was your thing that you said for the cake? It's not the cake. God, come on, help me out.
Oh,
Oh,
um,
so peace and serenity.
peace and serenity. Yeah. Never
Yeah,
got peace and serenity from eating a piece of chocolate
the
cake.
cake.
Never.
No,
No.
not for more than 3 seconds. And like you said, then you had to like keep reloading. Yeah.
Right. Then I had to keep on trying to find that hit again.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. This has been so enlightening and so pleasant. And yeah, I'm praying for our city and for all the people who have been affected by this, especially for the man, Mr. Prude. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. God
Yeah.
bless him.
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much. I truly appreciate your taking the time to sit here and chat with us. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
thank you for asking me. I
So,
am glad I can help you. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Finish strong. All right. Love you. Bye, sis.
Love you too. Bye bye.
Wow, thank you so much, Jeannie. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd like to thank you very much for listening. And please do me a favor and subscribe to the Air Hug Community Podcast. I'd also really super appreciated it if you would go in and give it a 5-star rating. And if you're really interested and thought that this spoke to you about finding peace and serenity through weight loss, give this a screenshot and share it on your social media. Thank you so much.